Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Full disclosure, UVI sent me this plugin Rumble to test out, so I haven't paid for it myself. I'm going to make loads of bass lines, see what's up. UVI Rumble, let's go. Okay, so this is my first sound that I made, having a band for the low, mid and high. And I know you can do that on other synths, but the fact that they've got some really different oscillator types that can give you really inspiring ideas is pretty cool. Say for instance in here, it's just a tiny little detail, but you can just really quickly dial in amplitude modulation from the low band or the high band to the mid. And if you go to the high, you can dial in amplitude modulation from the low and the mid straight away, and same again on the low. So I think that's really interesting, having that quick ability to do amplitude modulation, just like boom, it's in. It's cool. This routing matrix, sometimes I was just getting a little bit confused with it, but once you get used to it, it does exactly what you need. I like a dynamic bass, so I was using the envelope quite a lot and these different effects. I'm going to explore a bit more, but I'd really like it if you could just filter this band, have a filter for this band and have a filter for that band. So I'm going to try and explore that a little bit more. Let's see what else we can make. Alright, so that's the second sound. It's got these macros and just it gives you that performability. I just tried it out with the MIDI keyboard and it works lovely, so that's good. In the sampler, they've got a section called Reese's, which is sick. I think that's really, really cool. And the actual Reese sounds that they've got in there are pretty authentic for D&B, so that's alright actually, to be fair to them. I'm still a bit like, about this filter. I would really like it to be able to put the filter on the high, the mid and the low and be able to filter them differently. I'm keen to start going in now and exploring these things here. So they've got a compressor and an EQ. So I'm going to explore that on the next sound a little bit more. Let's see what we can get. Okay, I'm impressed with being able to manipulate these bands and being able to change the crossover frequency with an envelope between those two bands is something pretty cool that I don't know if I've seen that anywhere else that I can think of where you can modulate those crossover bands. That is interesting. I'm really impressed with that one. Also, this compressor as well, the different options, the FET sounded pretty cool. I'd love a bit more control, like, you know, attack, and I'd love to be able to do 2 of these in a row, see what happens. Yeah, all right. That's pretty cool. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with this plugin Rumble. It's obviously focused on bass. Some of the things that I like are worth looking into and worth getting a demo to try out. Being able to really quickly modulate these bands between the different oscillators. You've got one band for body, character, air, and that's super interesting. Definitely worth exploring. The second thing that I thought was really good, you can get amplitude modulation in most synths right here in these little windows to dial in straight away. It's really cool. And it gives me the sound that I look for in bass, like with that amplitude mod, really quickly. And I love stuff that saves time. Another thing is when you go inside of a band like body, having all different ones, analog oscillators, fold, samplers, like, you know, just having a different range here to look through, I think is inspiring. And I was particularly impressed with the stuff that was inside the sampler ones. I think this random is a nice thing to have, being able to lock that in. Only having 2 multi-segment envelopes, I thought that could have been like one that was like 4 or more, because I love a multi-segment envelope. LFOs and envelopes are pretty standard. They all work fine, just exactly as you'd expect. And you can spread it out a little bit. But I did notice I was trying to get stuff super wide at one point, and I didn't feel like I could put it as wide as I wanted to. I even took the spread all the way out to 100 and put a big reverb in and put that width right up. And I still felt like, oh, I could use a little bit more stereo out of this. So I feel like it's doing you a good favor where it's going to have that mono compatibility and it's going to keep your bass sounding really nice. But at the same time, I'm a bit like, oh, I wish it would like push a bit more than that. So just something to think about. Also, I wasn't happy with the filter. I wish you could filter each band, and I wish that the different types of filter, like I know there are a bunch here, like analog filters, variable filters, and they're pretty creative. But like if you just want to cut loads of stuff and have like an 8 pole per octave filter, it's just not there. I would expect there to be a 2 as well. So yeah, I wasn't super impressed with the filter. So that was something just to think about. Yeah, I just wasn't really sold on the filter. The EQ works fine. The compressor, pretty cool. The different modes are nice to dial in. And I wish you could have had an attack, threshold ratio, you know, all that stuff. But having these different modes and being able to mix it in and being able to drive into the compressor is kind of all you really want. And it just takes care of all that other stuff behind the scenes for you. And the other thing is that these presets, I showed off a few in these 2 here, 808 and Cyber, but the presets are pretty solid. I'd actually consider using some of them. What they've done is once you load in a preset, let's say this preset, they've done you 8 macros so that you can really quickly dial in a different sound and customize it and modify it, even if you're not so cool with like synthesis, which I think is good. But then there's enough control that if you are confident with synthesis, you can go in the matrix and you can adjust all these different things. I did notice that sometimes, say if you put an effect in the high band, but then you mute it, you can still hear the impact of that effect on the high band over the other stuff. Where between this crossover, on the image, it looks like it's going to be a really harsh filter here, like at the crossover point, but it's actually a bit more sloped like that. And so you can still hear the impact of this effect on these things, even though that one's off. So I did notice that a little bit at times. It was just a little thing that could have been a bit cleaner. And other than that, it's just solid plugin. I hope that gives you some insights. I'd recommend that you give it a demo at least and try it out, see if it fits your workflow. And just thank you to UVI for sending me Rumble to review. Thank you for watching. Till next time. Nice one.